Welcome everybody back to Boost in Motion, guys, and today we're going to talk about coilovers versus lowering springs. But before I get into the video, guys, if you've been watching a few of my videos and I've been giving you guys a lot of help with your choices from parts to cars to whatever information I give you, please hit that like button right now. You guys don't understand how much that really allows me to grow this channel. And also, if you love the videos, please subscribe and hit the bell notification. But let's hurry up and get into this video. Alright guys, so let's talk about some of the benefits and or pros of getting lowering springs. Number one, the price. The prices are usually pretty good at $150 to $300. Most of us want to be value shoppers, so we want to get the most for our money. And that moves it on to two. It gives you the appearance that you want. You want a car to be a lot lower and just have that tire to fender look. And it just looks so much more better. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. And number three, there is a performance gain. When you lower your car, you lower the center of gravity. In most cases, you decrease the amount of body roll. So the car necessarily should definitely handle a bit better. But let's go over to the negatives. Now, it being that it's cheaper, usually a lot of companies just make a spring. They don't put too much R&D into making a spring that will give you a good ride. So for instance, like AXLEBACK or EBOCH, don't beat me up guys in the comments, they put a lot of R&D to try to get a coil spring that is pretty much spring rated for the stock shocks. Now, usually most of these companies will always recommend you guys going with an aftermarket set of struts. Usually these struts are either air or oil sealed, and they'll pretty much be able to handle the amount of bound and rebound that you get from just daily driving. So that's why most of the guys, whoever heard the saying that you drive your car on lowering springs and it's always bouncing around, or you ever see those Hondas where it's just bouncing, it's just like shaking, because most of the time they blew their shocks already. On the stock shocks, right? There's always a specific zone on where the range where the shock is supposed to work. When you put on lowering springs, you actually push the shock out of its efficiency zone, which means that that's why you have a harsher ride. If you ever notice, stock shocks keep you at a higher tolerance or a higher range. And yes, if they're blown, they usually ride like crap. So when you put lowering springs on stock shocks, guess what? You just took it right out of it. Number two, a lot of guys do is they'll put lowering springs on stock shocks that they have for 20, 30, 40, 50, 100,000 miles. And boom, the shocks go out. So that's one of the cons against putting in lowering springs, that you're at the whims of your stock shocks. They're not tuned primarily for the spring rate of that lowering spring, and also these companies don't put that much R&D into making sure that they have the car of the spring rated towards the amount of weight. So most of the time you guys will install this, and after a few months you're complaining about bottoming out, you're going to complain about ride comfort, and you're also going to complain about you blew out your tires. But let's actually go talk about some of the pros now for coilovers. Now getting into the pros for coilovers. But before I get into it, if you made it to this part, hit the like button. If you like the video, if I'm giving you guys information that you need, please so much. I love y'all so much for that. The pros for coilovers is number one, great ride comfort. In most cases, coilovers ride way better than stock. The shock and rebound is most of the cases adjustable. That's if you get adjustable dampering. Dampering is pretty much how quickly and how good the shock would rebound from hitting certain potholes. So for instance, I've had lowering springs, I've had coilovers. So when you adjust the amount of let's say tension or dampering, you can choose to have it more on the stiff side and more on the softer side, which is great, and I love that functionality. Here's another pro. Two, you can choose your amount of spring rates. Now, there are higher spring rates where you can go where the suspension will be super stiff. But there's also spring rates where you can choose a lower spring rate, which can give you great ride comfort, especially that you can also adjust the dampering. I'm telling you guys, only the people who ever had coilovers would understand. It's one of the best things of knowing that, hey, I don't really like how it's driving today, or I don't like it being this stiff. Let me just make it a little softer. Or when I was taking those few turns before, wherever you were taking the turns, you're like, I felt too much body roll. So then you just adjust the dampering just to be a little bit better. Or if you want to go to autocrossing, you go with a stiffer, a spring. All in all, the functionality is there, and I think that's a great pro. Let's get into some more. So also with the pros that I really do like about it is the fact that you can always go back to stock. For instance, let's just say you want to sell the car, right? And you're like, you know what? Let me put my stock struts back on with stock springs. Now, of course, if not everybody work on their cars, but let's say if you don't work in your car, you pay somebody to put them back in, and then you'll just sell the coilovers back for about half the price of what you originally paid for it, because people are willing to buy a second set coilovers, and I really do like that. Also, on top of that, because you have that functionality of always going back stock, usually you have a warranty. Usually these warranties can be for between 1 year to 2 years, just in case there's ever any issues with the coilovers, as long as it's used for their intended use. And so they still take care of you, and I really do like that. And to add more into it, when you get a good quality coilover from a good quality company, guess what happens? They last pretty long. I live in Brooklyn, New York. The roads really aren't that good. This is New York. I have over 30,000 miles on my coilovers between two Q50s. And I've had coilovers on my last G37 and Maxima. And I all got between about 10,000 miles on them. The worst coilovers I ever had was years ago, and those were K-Sports. Terrible. They blew out in like 1,000 miles. But that all in all, that comes down to the quality of coilover you're going to buy. So it's very subjective. That's why I always try to stay with reputable brands and use them for the intended use. Now, let's just get to some of the cons. So for the cons, guys, come on, here's the cons. Number one, the price. At $600 to up to $3,000 for coilovers. What? It's expensive. Some of you guys are broke college students, or some of you guys have a wife or a partner, and they don't really want you to spend too much money on your car. So I definitely understand why this is something that you necessarily do not need to get. It's expensive. It's expensive modification, but it's expensive performance modification. Number two, intended use. Some of you guys don't really need coilovers. I mean, you're going to be on stock suspension. You guys like the way the car look. You don't really necessarily need to lower it, whatever the case might be. Or you might only want about a minimal inch drop, which you can do on coilovers, but why spend so much extra money just to lower your car an inch just to get in your driveway? I understand, guys. It makes sense. And for number three, honestly, it's a performance modification. Some of you guys like to do simple modifications, 20 to 19-inch wheels, some spacers, keep the car clean. Why spend up to $1,000, $2,000 on coilovers when you could just put in lowering springs that lower your car an inch and you're happy about it? You're happy about it. Some of you guys drive mostly highway or regular streets. I live in New York City, so we only have stop and go traffic and the roads are terrible. So I need a good pair of shocks. Some of you guys have your stop and go traffic. Your average miles an hour is 30, 40 miles an hour. That's not city driving. That's highway driving, and it's gonna have great ride comfort with lowering springs. So all in all, those are the cons in the sense of some of you guys just don't really need this modification. At the end of the day, I'm always gonna be an advocate of getting coilovers because it brings your car to a next athletic level of competing, but that's for the intended use. Some of you guys just want the looks and and a bit more performance, but some of you guys want the all-out performance and the longevity. All right, guys. So if you're going to do it right. At this moment, depending on the spectrum of Infiniti and Nissan vehicles that you guys might have, there may be performance aftermarket shocks, but necessary for the Q50 Q60, they aren't. It's only stock shocks. So I would not recommend getting lowering springs for our Q50 Q60s. But the only one I would advise in this video, if you made it to this part, is the red sports that come with DDS or the silver sports that come with DDS suspension. That's when we can actually adjust the firmness of our struts. So I would recommend getting lower springs for those cars because from what I've been told, they ride really great with lowering springs. But if you don't have that digital dynamic suspension, do not get it. I would recommend, depending on your use and the driving, go with lowering springs. Depending on how much money you have, go with lowering springs. But if you want all out the best performance and the best amount of money invested in something that's going to make you happy and know it's getting everything you need to get done, get coilovers, guys. You got to get coilovers. So all in all, guys, if you made this part of the video, hit like. If you made this part of the video, hit the subscribe and bell notification. I try my best to give you the best information I can in this video. Comment below if you guys like springs or coilovers, or just share some of your experiences with dealing with through a spectrum of cars you have, because at the end of the day, people are gonna watch this video and they're gonna need to notice some of this information. The next video I'm gonna try to do with the whole spring thing is air suspension versus coilovers. Hopefully I could get Midwest in here so we can talk a little bit about that, especially that he had coilovers and air suspension on his Q60 Silver Sport. But thanks again, guys. This is Boostinmotion. You can contact me at Boostinmotion on Facebook and Boostinmotion on Instagram. You guys have an amazing day, afternoon, morning, night, and good evening. Thank you.